Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Monday, July 3rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 61 days. The game against Michigan in 145 days. Timing is everything in life, and the last time we talked to you, I had Mark Givler on the show to talk about how many 5-stars Ohio State could land in the class of 2024, and it was like, well, is Aaron Nolan going to move up? Is he, how many guys are they going to get? And literally the next day, 247 updated their rankings, which moved Aaron Nolan up to a 5-star in the 247 composite. So great news. Ohio State added a 5-star commitment over the weekend. Surprised it didn't make more headlines. But that's on with today's show. Buckeyes, by the way, currently with the number 2 class in the nation, behind only Georgia. Georgia has 6 more commitments than Ohio State. Ohio State 4 points ahead of Michigan in the 247 composite team rankings, despite having 8 fewer commitments than the Wolverines at the moment. So that number could go down to 7 fewer commitments a little later on today, as Ohio State target Marquise Lightfoot, a defensive end out of Chicago, is expected to announce his decision on Monday. Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com joins me today. And Tony, this is very highly touted player at a very, very big position of need. So if Ohio State's able to add Marquise Lightfoot on Monday, that feels like that's going to be a very big deal for Larry Johnson.
Yeah, anytime you can get a top 100 defensive lineman, that is a good way to go, and it would be a nice start to the class, the defensive line class for Ohio State. He's an active pass rusher, and not just a pass rusher. He's an active defender, basically 122 tackles as a junior. One of those relentless kind of guys that will continue to chase the ball wherever it goes. So he's not just a guy that looks at the quarterback and goes and gets him, even though Larry Johnson loves those kind of guys. He's more well-rounded and can do different things. And just, I think as an alert defender, and isn't a guy that just puts his head in the ground and goes and gets the quarterback. So certainly one Ohio State would love to land right now, looking perhaps like the favorites. And, if they do get him, I do wonder how that would alter their composite score per recruit, which is the number 1 in the country right now, even ahead of Georgia, which I know is another factor that we like to look at, is the average per recruit. Ohio State right now just a smidge above Georgia, best in the nation, but I don't know the numbers well enough. And Tom, I'm a math person, so this hurts me that I can't tell you if this will raise or lower the score that Ohio State has per recruit. Probably. It might be right in the sweet spot of where it already is.
Yeah, Marquise Lightfoot is about a 96.96, and Ohio State's average ranking right now is like a 93.3 over Georgia's 93.2. So these are all extremely precise numbers. There may be some false precision here. We can talk about NIL valuations at some other show. Speaking of false precision, but this is a very big addition potentially for Ohio State if he does end up with the Buckeyes. And, another piece of this is not just the player, but also the position, because this is a spot where they had a bunch of guys they thought they were going to get a year ago and then ended up with only signing one in Joshua Mickens. So this is, that's a very important position group for the Buckeyes this cycle as well. So if you can get someone like Marquise Lightfoot to start building that class on, that is going to be potentially a very big deal. If he does end up choosing the Buckeyes, announcement at 5:00 Eastern on Monday. If he does, we will have an instant reaction show and take a much deeper dive into all of that. But don't want to put the cart before the horse. You never know in recruiting until done is done. So we'll potentially be back with you on Monday afternoon/evening with a little more on that. In another example of sometimes things change in recruiting, Elijah Moore, another one of Ohio State's. Someone who looked for a long time like he might be in Ohio State's class. He's announcing on Tuesday. This is the second of 3 announcements this week that we are kind of tracking. And Elijah Moore announcing on Tuesday, a wide receiver recruit, a very good wide receiver, big, tall, rangy, very athletic wide receiver. So you sort of go, okay, well, Brian Hartline's on the case, so obviously he's going to Ohio State. And recently, Tony, there's been a little bit of a not so fast, my friends, there on Elijah Moore and where he might end up playing his college ball.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He took an official visit early June, like a month ago, to Ohio State. And following that, and even before that, Ohio State had zeroed in on him. And it sure seemed like he was going to be a a Buckeye, and then he takes a Florida State official visit weekend of June 23rd, and then you start to see some crystal balls and some predictions start rolling in for the Noles. So apparently that was a very good visit. But he's a guy 6'4", 190 pounds, who had a really good week at the Elite 11 in the 7-on-7 tournament a couple weeks ago, and really stood out. And that's the same place where other Ohio State recruits were as well, and probably some other Florida State recruits were as well, and they were trying to sway him. But Jeremiah Smith was part of that, and some would tell you that Elijah Moore maybe even stood out over Jeremiah Smith. So a guy that Ohio State definitely wants, and right now things look like they're trending towards Florida State.
And, in much the same way that defensive end is a huge position of need for Ohio State this cycle, wide receiver, I mean, if Ohio State was going to miss on a top target, that might be the spot where they would choose to do it. I mean, even regardless of how good that target is, they do have 2 5-star receivers already committed for this cycle. Jeremiah Smith and Mylan Graham, both 5 stars in the 247 composite, both committed already. And, bet against Brian Hartline and his ability to recruit, the 3 to 4 of the top receivers in the country at your peril. He is, this dude don't miss. That's pretty much Brian Hartline on a macro scale. Just let me know when Brian Hartline has a bad class, and then you have my permission to start worrying about Ohio State wide receiver recruiting. So we'll keep an eye on that one on Tuesday as well. Thursday, Miles Lockhart, cornerback out of Arizona. Now, when you pull up Miles Lockhart, you're going to think, is this the right guy? Because his recruiting profile says running back. His position at the college level is going to be cornerback. Ohio State already has Bryce West in the class. Aaron Scott, still decision pending later on in July. We'll get to him in a minute. But if they can add Miles Lockhart this week, Tony, then you've got 2 really good corners already as a very, very solid start to the class. Obviously, they'd like to add a third, and again, we'll get to Aaron Scott in a minute. But this could be another really, really big addition, because Ohio State's offensive class is functionally just about done. They've got a couple little spots to patch. The defensive class is kind of still taking shape. This would be a very, very big piece for them to add.
Yeah, it would. And you mentioned the recruiting profile, and I'm sure as people look at it on their own and see 24/7, the composite has him like the number 365 player, and maybe the number 33 cornerback in the nation. He's only 5'10", like all of these things going through your mind, like, well, why do Ohio State go after this guy? But keep in mind, they went after him early and have been on him early, so that should tell you how much they like him and what they think of him. So this isn't one of these, we need a body. It's it's February 1st. We've got to fill out this class. We need somebody. The transfer portal's not working. We need to just bring in bodies, and hopefully it pans out. This is somebody they believe won't just pan out, but will be full nugget gold, Tom. This is something you just pull off the ground, rather than panning it out, which is where we get the panning out, Tom. Just so you know, it's a gold mining thing. But anyway, and he comes from gold mining territory, the Arizona. And the last time Ohio State went out to Arizona to get a cornerback, they ended up with Denzel Burke, who was also an athlete. And like Miles Lockhart is an athlete, played running back, will play some more running back, plays corner. Denzel Burke played more wide receiver than corner, shows up to Ohio State and starts as a true freshman. So, they feel pretty good. They feel very good about Miles Lockhart. And again, you look at him 5'10", well, what do you do? He's too small to play outside. I don't believe that, because I also come from the school of Antoine Winfield. But I could very well see him being a nickel in this defense, which is a pivotal position for this defense as well. So the way they do their defensive backs in Jim Knowles' defense, and really any defense now in today's college football, you need as many defensive backs as you can get. And if there's one that's a quality guy that wants to be a Buckeye, then you do what you can to make it happen.
Yeah, this is a spot where you need to keep turning that room over, because they lost Cam Brown after last season. They've had a couple guys transfer out over the last few years. J.K. Johnson just transferred out. But that's a room where you've got to keep restocking that talent. And they have last year's corner class. I think the guys coming in this year, very solid class. And then you've got you have the possibility of bringing in as many as 3 really good corners this year. And if you get a couple outside guys, you're going to need someone to play in the slot, and that's how you just kind of keep the machine rolling, is you keep just bringing in top players every single year. And so that they have the possibility of adding a second corner to the class on Thursday. And then if Miles Lockhart is in, then they've got two. And then the last guy we want to talk about today, Aaron Scott, cornerback out of Springfield. This is really, the three finalists are Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon. I don't think anyone thinks Oregon is a realistic possibility. So it's Ohio State and Michigan. And depending on who you ask, Alex Gleitman is, keeping his pick on Ohio State, but is talked about this a little bit on last week's show. There's conflicting information out there. Mark Giffler has been, not nearly as concerned about Scott ending up at Michigan as Alex and certainly a lot of other folks have. There's a lot of smoke coming off the Michigan side that they're feeling pretty good about things. And then he announced his decision date, Tony. His decision date is July 30th because it's his dad's birthday. There's now a working theory on why this is tremendous news for Ohio State fans. Why is it good news that Aaron Scott is announcing on his dad's birthday?
Yeah, his dad is apparently a huge Ohio State fan. So this would either be the best birthday gift for a father or the worst troll that you've ever seen of your dad. And, kids like to have fun. Either way, give something to your dad that makes him happy, or, the commitment equivalent of a whoopee cushion type of thing, basically. But yeah, watching the Michigan fan reaction to once they heard this date announcement, it was also the deflation of another type of cushion, if you will. But a guy that Ohio State has to get, basically, you can't let the best in-state prospects go. And knowing how much they need the secondary when you've got one of the best cornerbacks in the nation in your state, less than an hour from you, this is a guy that you can't let go. And then you see the reaction from Michigan fans that you've put so many resources into getting Aaron Scott. If you were to lose him, all of those resources would basically just be wasted. So that is another win for Ohio State. If you get him, not only do you get him, but you keep him from Michigan. All the while, Michigan has put so many resources into him and not put resources elsewhere. So it would be one of those double wins for Ohio State. And I know this is a guy that has really risen up the rankings over the past year, and a guy that whoever gets Ohio State or Michigan is going to be thrilled with, and then also thrilled that the other school didn't get him. And that's another key aspect to this. And then, Tom, a name that we haven't even talked about when we talk about receiving and secondary, JoJo Trader is, and not that he's committing at any point this month, but if they miss out on somebody, that wouldn't be a bad guy to, fill in at receiver, fill in at safety, fill in at corner. Just another name out there that they can maybe rely on if things don't go their way, or even if they do, because you can never have enough 5-star talent.
Yeah, no doubt that's someone that Ohio State would love to add to their class. He is out of Chaminade Madonna out in South Florida, I believe. And Ohio State not the favorite there. I talked to Mark Giffler about him on Friday's show. Ohio State not the favorite there, but certainly in that mix. And again, if you bet against Brian Hartline at your own peril there. But that is another name to know. But yeah, those are the three we just talked about there. The four we just talked about there. Lightfoot today, Moore tomorrow, Lockhart on Thursday, and Aaron Scott on the 30th. If the Ohio State ends, let's just hypothetically, if they add just the three guys that I think we're viewing as favorites for right now, so that would be Lightfoot, Lockhart, and Scott, that would put Ohio State, I used the class calculator, Tony, and it would put Ohio State at 287.7 points. What does that mean? It doesn't matter. Basically, all it means is that would be the class basically exactly where they were at the end of the 2023 cycle. So they could, at the end of July, just with adding those three guys, be where they were at the end of the 2023 cycle, which was a good but not incredible class by Ohio State standards. And it's July. You got other names floating out there. Kingston Viliamuaso, for example, the linebacker out of California. Will he commit in July or sometime later? They've got Edric Houston out there in August. Those guys are all out there. We're just talking about the guys that have commitment dates set. So those are, that would put this class already basically where last year's class ended, and it's only July, and there's a bunch more guys who they have, who have Ohio State very high on their lists and who Ohio State has very high on their board. So lots more guys to talk about as we go through the summer months. And boy, Tony, we're not all that far from Big Ten Media Days. The unofficial start of college football season is close enough that we're starting to get texts from people about do we want to go to dinner in Indianapolis? So the college football season, the unofficial start of college football season, right around the corner. I think we're 3 weeks away from Big Ten Media Days now. So boy, wouldn't this be a great time between all the recruiting news and the fact that the season's right around the corner? Wouldn't this be a great time to hop on board at BuckeyeHuddle.com? We have a fantastic team of insiders, Mark and Alex, working the phones, working the DMs, staying up to date on all this recruiting news, keeping us informed, keeping you informed, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Kevin, Tony, and I covering the team, Ross and Mikey and Justin and Devin all covering the X's and O's, making you a smarter football fan. Fun community, lots of great stuff going on, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So give it a try. Give it a try for a month. This is going to be a very busy and eventful month on the recruiting front, and going to be a very busy and eventful month on the team coverage side of things, as well as we count down to the start of the 2023 Ohio State football season. So sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.